Determined is how you would describe Lowell Wiley's approach to life. When he made his mind up to do something, he would not stop until he got it done. Lowell was born in Salvisa, a small town in Mercer County, Kentucky, to parents Earl and Edith Wiley in 1936. Along with his 4 brothers, he was part of a family of aviators, and from a very young age, he was determined to join them in the sky. In 1949, he took his first flight. He was 13, and his father took him up in a 4-place Belanca. As he got older, he took flight lessons from his brother Earl Sherman. Earl learned to fly on the GI Bill and became a flight instructor, and later worked as a crop duster and corporate pilot. It was these lessons that got Lowell hooked on flying. Hoping to follow Earl's path to flying, Lowell joined the Marines, but due to a medical issue, he was forced to resign. Undaunted and still determined to serve his country, he joined the Air Force, and while he longed to fly, poor eyesight prevented that. In 1958, while stationed in Little Rock, Arkansas, he joined the Little Rock AFB Aero Club and began flying again with instructor Morton Fitzpatrick, who was an ex-B-47 bomber pilot and someone who Lowell would remember for his entire flying career. He soloed on October 13th of that year in the club's Aranca 7AC Champ. Like a parent, a flight instructor can make a real impression on a student, and Lowell, who was determined to be the best pilot he could be, took each lesson to heart. Years later, he would reflect that those lessons contributed to saving his life more than one time. Now with his pilot license in hand, he left the Air Force in September 1959 and returned to Kentucky, where he would make flying his life. Living in Lexington, Kentucky, he joined the local unit of the Civil Air Patrol, a group he would work with for the rest of his life. He was also a member of the Fayette Flying Club, where he pursued his commercial pilot license, and shortly after, in 1963, his CFI. He was now a certified flight instructor. Joining the staff of Bomer Flying Service as an instructor, he continued to upgrade his rating, and by the spring of 1964, he had completed his instrument and multi-engine rating. Never missing the opportunity to be in the air, he worked with many of the Kentucky Air Services that needed a pilot. Capital Air Taxi in Frankfort, Bomer Flying Service in Lexington, Kentucky Flying Service in Louisville, working as a corporate pilot for the Martinet Corporation and the Bluegrass Air Motive and Dawson Bridge Company. Over the years, he flew people from Adolph Rupp to Alabama and Governor George Wallace, Burt Reynolds, and Dinah Shore. And when he was not flying his clients around, he would be instructing. The more Lowell flew, the more ratings he collected. He became a commercial-rated helicopter pilot with instrument training in 1967, and by 1969 he had earned the Airline Transport Pilot rating for single and multi-engine airplanes and a commercial rating for single roto helicopters and single and multi-engine seaplane ratings. He was also rated as a certified flight instructor for airplanes, instruments, and helicopters, as well as being a basic and advanced ground instructor. Lowell did get to spend more time on the ground. In 1970, while working at Bluegrass Airport, he met and married Wanda Blades. Later, they welcomed 2 daughters, Erica and Michelle. In 1978, Lowell began work with the Del Rio Flying Service in Hondo, Texas, instructing United States Air Force Academy cadets. Although it started as a temporary position, he was asked to come back and did so several more times. Between 1987 and 1992, he came back to Lexington, Kentucky to live, but returned to Hondo, Texas each summer during that period to train Air Force cadets. His flying slowed between 1992 and 2004, but in 2004, he returned to flying with a vengeance and began his second tour with the Civil Air Patrol, where he flew 5 more years as a mission pilot, flight instructor, and check pilot. He attained the rank of major in the Civil Air Patrol. During his 50 years of flying, he accumulated more than 20,000 hours of flying. He is credited with training hundreds of pilots, flew many different aircraft, and served his country proudly and promoted the aviation industry. In 2009, he was awarded the Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award for 50 years of flight safety. In July 2010, AOPA featured Lowell in their monthly pilots section of the magazine. He was called an excellent teacher and instructor. He would just say that he was lucky, blessed, and grateful. Lowell was determined to be the best pilot and instructor he could be, and like his mentor, Morton Fitzpatrick, Lowell became someone his students would look up to. Lowell M. Wiley passed away in August of 2010. After his passing, one of his students wrote, Lowell Wiley was my first CFI ever. We met at a cap flight camp in 2006. I wanted to tell him how, when I met him, I was a kid scared that I would flip the plane over. Now I'm a commercially licensed pilot, and I'm getting my MS in aviation human factors. I wanted to tell him about how far I had come and how he had started me on the right track for the rest of my life. It is therefore fitting that Lowell M. Wiley be enshrined into the official Aviation Hall of Fame of the Commonwealth of Kentucky.